This right here is the ticket to getting that thing back on the road. Essentially, I'm an idiot and did not follow the golden rule of measure twice, cut once. I was just kind of like, hey, that looks good, sweet. And then I'm not working out, and it almost cost me taking this out, redoing the mouse, which then when I had to redo the exhaust, redo the transmission, you get the idea. So thankfully, my dad found out and thought of the idea of using a 73 A-body center link. That's what that over there on the bench is, along with a 73 A-body idler arm and pitman arm. Because the 72 style, I mean, it's a little bit different here. You can see the clear differences. So 73 is the rusty one here, 72 is the one that we took off the car. Differences here. Main difference though, is you can see the ball joints on this one go up, whereas on the 73 they go down. So in turn it drops the center link about a ½ inch down, which is perfect because the issue is that there idler arm and the knuckle that connects, or like top of the ball joint essentially that connects to the center link, hit the pan every time you would turn it all the way to the right. And obviously that was not gonna work. So here you can see actually the mark up here where it was hitting the pan. It was hitting pretty substantially. So this here is the 73 idler arm, and talk about friggin' luck and clearance, man. That right there is enough to make me happy, enough to work. And when the engine torques and for some reason it hits it, you can always just shave down the top of this here a little bit because there's no zerk or anything on it. But look at that, spins freely without hitting. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up that center link, paint it. As soon as the pitman arm shows up, toss that on, and then steering will be done. And thank God this all works. So last two things I'm waiting on are driveshaft and waiting on a pitman arm. I ended up getting the 73 pitman arm idler arm and center link, but it turns out the pitman arm was for power steering, so it's different diameter than the output shaft in the box. So hopefully manual steering one will get here soon, and then the driveshaft will be ready in a couple days or so. While I'm waiting, I decided to tackle the last little bit of rust on this car that I've been wanting to do forever. So these corners were pretty rusted out. As you can see, that was all that was left of that big square there. I mean, the other side's essentially the same. So got all cut out, threw some rust converter on it. Got my patch here all made. Well, I'll go ahead and weld through prime the back once that is done. Get it tacked in place, but yeah, not too bad. Quick little project to show you what the other side looks like here. Wasn't as bad as the driver's side, but you can see just stuff like that. It's essentially the same thing on the lower quarters. When I replace those, the water just pools up in the bottom. I mean, just common rust spots, not much to it. So hopefully I can get this wrapped up by today, and then all the rust on this car will be gone. Got my corner patches all welded up, did some body work, and just threw some orange on them now. Doesn't totally blend, so I'm gonna have to go through and just kind of like patina it up. Same thing I had to do on the quarter and everything else I've painted on the outside of this car. So luckily, that's just a little spot that'll be pretty easy to do. Happy that that is done. And now the car is essentially rust free. The only last like metal, I guess, major body part I want to replace is the cowl. Doesn't need the whole cowl, it basically needs the vents. Because I don't know what someone was thinking or what exactly happened, but yeah, it just looks ugly. But yeah, it's all rust free from the floor, trunk floor, tail panel, quarter on that side, these patches, half of an inner fender, other little patches, whatnot. This thing needed a lot, but hey, I'm happy with it. So once I go through and kind of blend those in, bada bing, bada boom, hopefully no one will notice. And then another thing I've been wanting to do for a while is replace the seals for the windows on both sides because they leaked pretty bad. These are the old ones here. They're just all brittle and crusty from sitting in the desert before I got it. And speaking of the desert, you can see some of it is still trapped under there. So I'll go ahead and clean all that out and whatnot. New seals looking sweet. These back window ones are going to be a little bit tricky. I got to go through and clean up this whole like frame piece for it, and then I gotta somehow wedge this seal in between the frame and the glass and hopefully not crack the glass. So wish me luck on that. Check it out. Window seals are all done. Very exciting, I know, but it's exciting for me because hopefully that'll mean no more water in the car. Once I figured out how to take this whole quarter glass out here and get that situated, it honestly went pretty easy. I mean, that side over there probably took me less than half the time to do this side here. It's just tricky to get the old stuff out of this and try to get the new stuff pressed in. So, I mean, the door glass here, that was easy. That just kind of pops up in there. Got the push pins down here, 2 up front there. So, yeah, not too bad. Once I figure out where I want it, like the glass wise, I mean, because as you can see, there's still some gaps. So I gotta go through, adjust the glass, leak test it, make sure that's all good. Once that's good, I think I'm gonna put some weather stripping glue just in a couple of spots, just to ensure that'll stay up there in place. But yeah, another thing done on this car. Honestly, as little and dumb as it is, it makes the car look better because it's not all crusty and dirty around there now. So I'll take it. Also, got my drive shaft too. Got that all in place and painted. So that is another big thing crossed off. Let's see, what else? Just a bunch of other little things. Oh yeah, got the steering too. So there is that 73 center link, either arm and pitman arm. So if anybody else needs an idea on how to drop your steering for any sort of engine swap on these things, there you go. 73 is a ½ inch lower than anything prior. So like 67 through 72. So woohoo, a bunch of other big things crossed off. Right now we just have the upper arms pushed all the way back from the cam bolts, just to kind of get a basis of what we're gonna do for an alignment. So that'll be the next thing to figure out. And the tricky thing with these cars are, because the torsion bars, as soon as I let it down, it's still gonna be riding way too high until I like take it around the block and the suspension settles. Like, you can stand on it, jump on the fenders, I've done that before, and it still won't compress it. It's gotta have like the weight of the car on it or something. I don't know, and I'm expecting the same thing to happen with these, obviously, because they're brand new torsion bars. So I think it's gonna take us some time to get the suspension and alignment dialed in. But other than that, I think we're pretty much ready. You know what that means. Yeah, so bought an LS. After a lot of work and multiple hours later, the engine is out of this thing. It's a tiny problem, not that big of a deal. Behind me right here, another engine. Well, the engine is in. It's done. I'm pretty happy with it. This was easily my most fab intense project. Finally, the trans tunnel is done. It'll take time, so the engine's in. That looks so cool in there. I spent all last night working on this. Bam. So just took it around the block a couple times, both of us drove it. I got a feel, this thing sounds sick when we do a pull. This thing like is so touchy now, I love it. First things first, rear brakes dragging pretty bad, so I'm gonna go ahead, pull the tires off, adjust those. Have a small coolant leak. I think it's just coming from the bottom of the overflow. I mean, you can see some of the water or coolant down there. So we'll figure that out. I hope that's just it. And then the strangest thing is when in neutral or like just at like a stoplight, it'll idle at like 2,000 RPM, and then if you snap the throttle, it still won't drop. So we're thinking it's the Chinese IAC that's giving us an issue. Also noticed that too, so that might be why this thing like whistles or like whines. So yeah, got a couple things. Hopefully we'll get the brakes situated and whatnot. Try to find maybe a GM IAC instead of the China Amazon junk. And then cool leak, but so far not too shabby. I mean, the steering on this thing, oh my god, is so much better with that quick ratio box. Cannot wait to get this thing dialed. After, I guess you could say, testing all day, running out, changing things, coming back, fixing things, going out, see if it worked and whatnot. And we got it down to just a couple issues left still to figure out. Not huge issues, but let's see. We started off the day with, what did we get fixed? What did I say earlier? Oh yeah, we had the coolant leak, which it was coming on the bottom of the overflow. Took that all apart, put a new fitting, retapped it into the bottom of the overflow. That seemed to solve that, but there's still a pinhole maybe in the radiator or something, or maybe I don't have the lower hose. Like maybe the angle of it into the radiator's off a little, because it still leaks out of it a little bit. I mean, I guess it was so much when it was running where at a stoplight one time, the guy said we were leaking coolant, but then got to the gas station, it wasn't. So I don't really know what's going on there. I can still see, some residual like coolant on the bottom of the skid plate. So maybe we'll pressure test it, see if there's any actual leaks on the radiator. It could be. I could have maybe moving it around over the past few months, could have nicked it or something. Also had an issue with the tires clearing the fenders here. So inside these cars, the inner fender mount, oh wow, that is not focusing. Okay, there's a tab that comes off the fender here. If we can get that to focus, that would be sweet. There's a tab that comes off the fender here, and then there's kind of like a box, like standoff along this like inner piece where it would bolt to. So it was hitting when we'd turn it. So I cut the boxes off both sides, and then I grind those flush, re-undercoat it, and then I rolled this lip back. So I don't know if you can really tell, that's what the lip looks like, and then it's rolled back here. This side, for some reason, is clear. As you can see, like 2 years ago, I cut it down there and then bent it back. So this side's clear. The other side, I'm gonna go ahead and trim a little bit and do the same thing. I mean, it's not super noticeable, honestly, unless you look at it. So I can do that on the other side because it 100% does rub when you turn all the way to that side. But steering wise, this new steering box is freaking sweet. This thing, like, you don't slide out of the seat every time I take a corner now, which is really good. I mean, it feels a lot better. So that's sweet. It's like kind of planted. You can actually feel the road. That's good. Other issues we're gonna figure out hopefully now. Gas gauge, it's not totally accurate. We did a bunch of testing, nothing electrical. We just think the float isn't exactly dialed, so we're gonna drop the tank and readjust that. We gotta do that. And then the last thing here is the suspension is finally settled now. You can see the camber. Oh man, it's so hard to show it from the side, but there you go. So you can obviously see the camber is way off. So bring the tires back in. That's gonna take some adjusting and figuring out to do. But overall, not too bad. one thing I have learned after probably putting, I don't know, 15, 20 miles on it today, is this thing does need a rear end. One for a posi, one for a different gear, because it's a lot quicker than the slant, but like, I don't know, maybe just because driving this thing the past few months, I'm used to somewhat of some power. Like, it's a boat, but like this thing kind of hauls between like the acceleration between like 30 and 60. So I don't know, this thing definitely needs a rear end if I wanted to spin both tires, obviously, and then actually have some pretty decent acceleration. But yeah, overall not too bad. A couple things before I go ahead and wrap up this video here. Last night we went ahead and adjusted the camber on the front wheels, got it set to a pretty good spot right now. And the cool thing is we were able to actually make the tires go forward more in the wheel well, so I don't think I'm gonna have to cut the driver's side fender like I was talking about earlier, which I'm pretty happy about. I did not want to cut that at all, let alone just trim it a little bit. Hurts me. But yeah, hopefully that'll be good. You can see the camera here. That's a lot better. Granted, the suspension hasn't fully settled yet. Still got to take it for another test drive, let it settle. That's why it's sitting a little bit high right now. But I think that's as close as we can get it. We'll check it again. I mean, it might have a little, which obviously isn't ideal. It's going to wear at the inner treads of the tires. So that's going to take some more adjusting. But like I said, I think it's pretty good where it's at. I ended up having a small oil leak too from the back of the valve cover here underneath the car. Saw some oil. We were like, chase it up here. And I think it's just because the seals on these, it's like they're a smidge too big to fit in the channel all the way around. So like if you don't get them pressed all the way in there, there'll be like a little loop or like a bubble where obviously oil can leak out. So I think that's what I had on the back because all the bolts were tight. So took that off, reseated it, adjusted it. That should fix that problem. And then the other big issue we're having, like I mentioned in a couple clips earlier, was the IAC we thought was bad. Turns out it wasn't that. So it was sitting at, what was it, like 2,000 RPM, just in neutral at idle, which obviously is way too high. And after some further digging here, we came to the conclusion that it was the actual, like, percent setting, I guess you could say. Let's see in here. Wrong thing again. Okay, there we go. Nope, not that. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. So the IAC hold position, it was set at 20% from the get-go. So we bumped that down to 5. We also bumped down the IAC ramp start. That was at 2,000 RPM, which I think that would make sense why it was idling at 2,000 RPM. Also, when you would start the car up at first, it would idle really high for like maybe 5 to 10 seconds and then it would drop down. So I'm pretty sure that's what the actual ramp start means. So we got it down to 900. So you start it up, it idles a little bit higher for like a second or two, and then it'll drop down to the 750 idle we have it at right now. So between those two things, hopefully that fixes the IAC issue. This is both of our first times messing with this. So it's just going to take a while to get used to between reading forums online and the instructions, I guess you could say, that Holly sent with the kit. So between all that, we're still trying to figure it all out. But after first day of driving, I mean, we got quite a few issues solved. So I'm sure more will pop up here and there. But that'll probably be in the next video, along with some other new parts I got coming in the next video. And then I'll kind of explain where the heck we're going from here and what's coming up. All right, camera is backwards. I hope you can hear me. Doing a little test drive so far after we adjusted some things. First things first is I can tell you now that we had just adjusted it. Oh, e-brake was on. I can tell you that the alignment was a little off so far. Well, that's to be expected. Better at driving too. That would probably help a little bit.
need to install this across an intersection right now.